One of them wanted to be the security guy. He claimed he was a security guy.
Welcome to Security Guy Radio. What's your name?
I'm John Romanowich, the president and CEO of SightLogix.
Where are you guys located?
We're located in Princeton, New Jersey.
There's a lot of companies from New Jersey out here. What's going on over there?
I don't know. I haven't been around the show, so I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, a lot of people. How do we get hold of you? Website?
Well, you can find us at www.sightlogix.com, which is spelled SIGHTLOGIX.
Thank you for my nieces and nephews that can't spell. Victim of the public school system. All right. So what does SightLogix do?
SightLogix makes smart thermal cameras for 24-hour security in the outdoors. And we can cover an area the size of a football field with a single sensor. And
a single sensor?
Yeah, with a single sensor, and it acts like an outdoor burglar alarm because it's so accurate. So we could detect people or whatever you desire to detect, and then that information can alert somebody that there's what you're interested in detecting in the field of view, so you could do something about it
now,
should you choose.
Is the football field detection with one sensor a new development in technology?
It's a brand new development. It was just introduced at the show yesterday here at ISC West 2015.
Wait a minute, do I have a Security Guy Radio exclusive?
Absolutely.
Does anybody else have this? Are you the guys that have this?
Yes, we're the only ones that have this capability.
Another exclusive on Security Guy Radio. Okay. I like infrared stuff. I used to design systems for the studios and clients, and we recommended thermal, infrared, and night vision, all this kind of stuff. And the technology just wasn't there. I mean, it did work, but they were super expensive and didn't get everything you wanted. Tell me why this technology is new and better and different now.
Well, the quality of thermal images has got much better, and it's available from a number of vendors. So in a way, the thermal imager itself has reduced in cost, and it's become much more of a commodity. But what separates what we do from what others do is that we put a tremendous amount of processing power inside the camera itself, and those processors can make the image look very clear, so you can see very good images 24 hours a day. But equally, if not more important, we can detect people very, very accurately, regardless of whether it's dark or light or raining or snow or any time of bad weather outside.
Is this something that came down from the military?
Well, the technologies were originally developed in the military, right. But frankly, some of the technologies we're showing here today are not only they're used by the military, but they're ahead of a lot of the military systems.
Oh, really? That's good to know. All right.
Sure.
All right. So, on thermal imaging, explain the mechanics and the software involved. You said the camera itself is housing some of the technology inside, whereas before some of this was processing, right? In other words, you had a camera, took a picture, and then the software is interpreting what it means. This is a little different.
Well, it's a basic concept. It's just kind of how and where it's done. So everything's done inside the camera.
Right.
There's a very high quality thermal image, and the best way to think about thermal imagery is that you're seeing heat. So if something is really hot in the image, it'll appear more white, and if it's cooler, it'll appear more dark. And so all you're seeing is heat. And then what we do is we try to make that image match the way the human eye sees, so that we could see the thermal image better.
So that's some software enhancing or modification.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's an image enhancement software.
All right. So how do we get to see somebody on a football field with one camera?
Well, the actual act of seeing is not necessarily unique. It's the key is to accurately detect, because the problem with securities and outdoor is that typically things happen and nobody knows it. And then the next day, they find out a car was stolen or something was destroyed, and they go back and review the footage, and they go, oh, there's that guy with the hoodie again,
right,
who just damaged our cars. So the idea here is that we can now be preemptive because we can detect in real time. We could send an alert to an active guard station or a central station,
texting,
and they can then take the necessary action to either get a guard out there or call the police.
And that's a little unique that the real time.
That's absolutely unique. You'll find that there are billions of dollars worth of cameras outdoor, but they're not actually solving the fundamental problem of security outdoors.
Ironically, the last thing I recommend for a security system of any type is cameras. I don't need a picture of you stealing my laptop because guess what? It's not here and I know it's stolen, right? And then you can't see the guy's face because it's not resolution quality that's acceptable in court and that kind of thing. I mean, you got 4K now, we can do that, right? But the guy that designs it puts the camera up in the corner of the ceiling, and it doesn't matter if it's 4K, his head's still the size of a pea,
That's
and
right,
it's not
yeah.
detected. So I do condone this type of application because this is an early alert warning system using a camera.
That's
I mean,
right.
you can really define it as an alarm.
It's
in a
really
lot
a
of ways.
sensor. It's a very,
Yeah.
very smart
That's
sensor.
right, specific sensor, yeah. All right, so show me on, we have a demo we can see on here, right?
Yeah.
By the way, where's this application used primarily? It's just commercial
Well, for
applications,
years this
people's
has
houses?
been used. It's not right down to the residential level yet, because it's just a little bit overkill with the areas that cover. Most people don't have a football field-sized backyard necessarily.
I know a few
No,
people
some
that do, actually.
And those
in
would-
Los Angeles, where I'm from, there's
and
a lot
those
of them.
people can afford it, so
Yeah.
we're happy to come by and help them out. But it turns out that these are used at electrical substations all over the country and throughout the world, as a matter
That
of
makes
fact.
me feel good. I did a show on guards, right? Guess who the highest paid guards are? In the power and nuclear industry. They're paid twice as much as an average guard. I'm very happy to hear that our grid is taking this stuff seriously and using this kind of equipment.
And we secure nuclear facilities too.
Yeah, that's
We
good.
secure Air Force sites. We all
Wait a
over
minute,
the
a
world.
nuclear facility.
Yes.
Everything's hot in a nuclear facility. How do you separate that stuff? That's interesting.
Well, then the people are colder, so then we detect them as being darker
Oh, I didn't think
because
about
the
that.
reactor will be whiter.
I'm kidding, but not half kidding,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
No,
things
it's
are hot.
it's a really good
Very interesting.
point. I don't really know. I've never actually measured the temperature of the smokestack, so I'm not really sure exactly
Yeah.
if they're hotter or colder. But
so
it-
if I'm running at 96 degrees,
98.6.
No, I run.
Otherwise,
I
you're
do.
not
I'm
feeling
96 actually.
Really?
Yeah, I'm really. It's kind of
Yeah.
weird, but anyway. And you're 101 because you got a fever.
I run a lot hotter.
Can you see the difference? Is it that sensitive?
Oh yeah, you'd be able to see the difference.
Seriously?
In fact, if we were to watch you talking, we could tell when you're breathing in and breathing out.
Really?
Yeah, because it would turn whiter when you're breathing out because more heat's coming out.
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're breathing in, it would look cooler.
Okay.
And if we were to
interesting,
aim this camera at your veins, we actually see your veins in your arms if you flex your muscles a little bit.
So, if you're looking at a football field, it's a wide area alarm system. That makes a lot of sense. What's the resolution like? Because we're talking about it as kind of a burglar alarm, so to speak, right?
Yes.
But can the cameras also zoom in, high resolution, and then see you hot and see you normally? You know, or is the infrared always?
Well,
on?
those are really two separate functions. One, so the way we do is we break it apart, and I could show you the video
Yeah.
in a little bit. But what we do is we break it apart, and we use the thermal camera for the detection because we detect people over huge areas. But then once we detect the person, we also know the geolocation of the person, like the GPS position, just like the GPS in your car.
Right.
And we can then take a camera and aim it at that GPS location, so we could zoom in, and now you could tell who it is. Actually.
The camera on the grid recognizes where the guy's standing on the field, writes an analog and says, "Here's the GPS interpretation where he is," and then moves to that area.
No, nobody needs to write anything down. So let me start right
All
here.
right.
So on the right-hand side, we're showing the new SightSensor XA, which covers 4 times more area than any other sensor. And here's the SightSensor XA in operation. On the left, we're detecting this person. We then zoom in using a Axis HD dome camera, so that's automatically following the target based upon the information being provided by the other camera. Here's an example of this being applied to car lots with a lower resolution imager, where we could actually accurately detect people between the cars, which is a really key application. Here's an example of showing that we can only detect in one direction if you like, because the person just walked to the right, and now he's walked to the left, and he'll be detected. So there you see the red box around him. The red areas are detection zones. And then in this example, we're showing that we can detect the person and not the dog that he's walking in front of him. So this just shows how accurately we can detect what we want to detect, which is people, while not detecting small animals and the other things that happen outdoors.
So the guy that's walking through the parking lot, and then the motorcycle, we're looking at it again. You guys can't see it on the radio, but the guy with the dog, is he being picked up because he's technically
It's based
hotter?
on size. It's based on
Size, okay.
So we put a size filter in that said we want to eliminate small animals, which is a typical situation
Right.
at outdoor facilities because there's always animals.
Can you tell does it interpret an actual temperature?
In theory, we could actually measure the temperature, but in these applications, we're not because we don't need to. The primary application is to either detect in most cases, we're trying to detect people or vehicles,
Right.
or detect people and not vehicles. So it's like, for example, we may care about whether or not a person is going into a train tunnel, but we don't want to detect every time a train goes by. It's a really tough thing to do.
You got some war stories, success projects that
Oh
solved
boy,
the caper?
some of the things we do are so high security that I actually can't talk about some, though we certainly have some exciting things and really strange things that have happened. I'm trying to think if I
come on
could.
now. You got to give security guard one
Yeah.
little thing now.
Let me see if I could throw one out there.
I'll tell you a story while you're thinking of one. So I met
Go
this
ahead.
guy over here. He's got a thing where he uses, takes social media alerts, and he tracks them, puts them all together. And so if something happened, like he had a murder, right, and the cops show up and nobody's there, his software got all the public, Twitter,
Cameras. Okay.
Instagram, and found out that people had been there, went back, collected their addresses, knocked on the door and says, "Were you here during this murder?" "Oh, I wasn't there." "Oh yeah, because here's all your Instagram pictures of the dead body." And they cracked the case. So I'm interested in
Wow.
this type of technology because it's not going to eliminate crime because criminals are dumb. That's the only reason we win. They're a little bit dumber than us, right? But it's going to deter a lot of things. If you can't, I'm looking at this camera, this guy walking across the field and his dog. I mean,
So let me tell you something really interesting. So it turns out that this capability can be used for safety applications also. And there's a very interesting safety application where we're being tested right now, where they want to see if somebody is in a subway system. They want to make sure somebody's not on the tracks.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
Right? We don't want
Sure.
people to get hit by trains.
Homeless
and it
person or
turns out a
something.
lot of people get hit by trains. You'd be surprised. And on a bad month in a major metropolitan area, as many as 10 people die getting hit by trains. Most people don't
Wow.
realize that.
That's interesting.
So here's what's really interesting. So we set up this pilot system, and we proved that we could very accurately filter the animals that are down there that are running around, the rats and things like that, and we could eliminate the train. And the key is to detect people. What shocked us is how many people are actually crossing the tracks on a normal week.
Yeah.
There are people that just jump right off the platform and they go across. And
Well,
they
you're
went-
not talking about people that live in the tunnels. They're saying, I don't
no,
want to
no,
walk
these are
into
people
the-
saying, I just want to get to the train on the other side. And
interesting.
they actually run across tracks. And what happens is sometimes they get tricked because the thing says the sign will say that the train is coming in a minute or two, and it's not. It's actually right there around the corner, and they don't know it. So anyway, it's just a very interesting thing that we did not expect. Like, we were thinking, well, how are we going to test the system? Nobody's ever going to be on the tracks. We didn't realize that people run across the tracks all the time.
Wow.
So now I'm not as surprised to find out that people actually get hit by trains as often as they do.
What's your latest, greatest thing coming up? Got anything that's going to improve
The
upon
latest
this?
and greatest, I mean, this is as good as it gets right here.
No. You always have to be one step ahead.
For today. So we just announced this. I mean, we already were the industry leader in coverage area against any other technology available for outdoor security.
You guys been
and
on a
we
while, yeah.
leapfrogged ourselves by covering 4 times more area at the same price point as we were before.
Now, I always ask people about terrorism, right? Terrorists are just a bunch of crooks, and they're smart crooks, but they're still criminals. We don't treat them like that. We treat them like some kind of, superhero, human, I'm worried about the network. I like closed systems. I don't like being on the net for stuff. We have China hacking things all the time. What do we do to protect against that? Did you hear about that Russian website a couple years ago where the guy was just saying, oh, there's a camera, and the IP address is 12345, and the password is password_01. And when he found that and sent out a ping, he unlocked the cameras and he was watching people sitting in their front room feeding their baby, right? What's the technology and security behind locking these cameras down? Because for my listeners that don't know, a camera now is essentially a computer on a network.
These cameras are certified to go into Defense Intelligence Network, so we're what they call DIACAP certified, so we could actually go right on to the most secure.
Oh, that's excellent.
To secure networks. I think that to stay in my area of expertise here, when we talk about your thing about data breaches and things like that, it turns out that there's no such thing as physical security without logical security for the reasons you just mentioned.
That's right.
But there's also no such thing as logical security without physical security, because at the end of the day, we could have a perfect firewalls and all types of things in our data centers, but if somebody could walk in with a memory stick with a virus and plug it right into the computer, then you still have a problem anyway. So it turns out that that's actually one of the biggest threats and one of the biggest fears for the major owners of data centers, like the people like Google and Facebook that have a large number of data centers. It's actually the volumetric detection problem, knowing that there's somebody actually there.
Now, it's interesting you should say that, because this is what I fought against in the studios, right? The IT guy walks in, and he has a little graduation hat on with the tassel, and he thinks he's smarter than you because he knows the computer and you don't. but he doesn't know people and he doesn't know behavior, all right? And there was always the physical guy doing security who's probably an ex-cop back in the day, and an IT guy who went to Microsoft school and learned how to push an NT button, nothing fancy, right? Now the trend is, if you Google the word security, it's attached to what?
Cyber.
IT, right?
Yeah.
And they're putting people in charge of IT in charge of all security. And the IT guy that says, I'm locking down that IP address and I got 120 key encryption and blah, 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 he doesn't think about the physical part. All security is physical because somebody, like you just said, has to walk in the data center or breach the data center door. They can plug something in. They don't just necessarily sit in China and hack it. So I'm glad you think that way because a lot of people don't. They just think, well,
but
I got a secure password. Somebody will crack it one day.
We are seeing a trend, but where the major companies will actually have a CSO and a CISO, where the CSO is the Chief Security Officer, and he's more on the physical side, and the CISO, which is the Chief Information Security Officer.
Microsoft does that.
I was thinking about Mike Howard. That's exactly what I was thinking about when I said that.
He came on our show, a great show.
Yeah,
very interesting. All right, well that's good. I always feel better coming to these shows, but for years I didn't. For years I was like, oh, you guys aren't getting it. People are getting it now, aren't
We're
they?
making you safer every day, a little bit safer.
Now, do you find a challenge in selling this technology? Because typically the buyers aren't caught up to the technology, right? There might be an old retired cop, or they didn't have a computer when they were a kid. Do you find that a hard sell?
I would say that over time it's getting easier and easier because people are getting more and more aware and they're taking the security more and more seriously.
Yeah.
So I'm finding that it is all about education, and I think a number of things happen. I think the customers are getting more educated, and our solutions are getting simpler, and now they're meeting. So I think you're going to see that these technologies are really at the point where we're really starting to take off. It's a really exciting time for these exact technologies in the market because people have been talking about smart cameras and things like that. They may have used different words, intelligent video, whatever, for years and years and years.
They have been,
but it's here for real. This stuff works. This is an outdoor burglar alarm. We can send it right into a central station, just like we can do the indoor security to your home, and it can be monitored. And then it's inherently video verified, which means that we know there's really a person out there doing something bad, so now the police actually take it far more serious than any other type of alerting system.
It's really a better application than most other security things.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, very good.
Really
well, John, thanks
times.
for talking to us. This has been a really interesting talk, and thanks for coming on Security Guy Radio.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, Chuck.